right, here he is, the great Mark Kendall from Great White. Mark, what's going on, man?
Just chilling at home for a minute. Getting ready to go out. We're playing Tulsa at the Hard Rock, and shows are coming in. Going great so far. We're finally coming to our home area and playing the Honda Center in Orange County. That's where we started.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be fun. It's a big place. It's this club kind of adopted us, way back when, and so going back to Orange County, it's going to be a lot of fun to see the old fans and stuff.
Well, I saw on your website, I mean, there's tons of shows coming up. You guys are always at it, including quite a few shows with Slaughter. And I know that, with a lot of the 80s rock bands, because, at this point in the theater and casino levels, it's mostly weekend fly-ins and stuff like that. So oftentimes it's a, kind of like a quote unquote build your own package type of thing for the promoters from the booking agencies. Is that why why Great White does so many shows with Slaughter, or is there a little bit deeper connection than that?
Our agent handles Slaughter too, and it's the most requested package that he ever gets. And he just gave us this huge plaque with all the shows we've done with them the past 12 years. And, there's a lot of sold out shows, and it's just it's a good mix, plus we play with a lot of other bands, even bands we never toured with, the REO Speedwagon, or,
Sure.
They'll throw in a stick or it's fun because, back in the day, we toured with the Scorpions for like 7 months, you know what I mean? Then maybe Alice Cooper or whoever. So we're getting to meet these guys that we always respected and listened to, but don't know them, like never met them or anything. So it's kind of cool in that way, just to meet these guys.
Did you? And obviously, Slaughter came a little bit later. I think their first record came out like 90, 91, something like that. But did you guys do any shows together back in the day?
No, I don't believe we ever played with them before. Yeah, like you said, they came out a lot later than we did.
Yeah.
So, I think when they came out, we were like on tour with Tesla or something, and they followed that with Scorpions. So we were so busy touring, we kind of missed the boat.
Well, the newest singer of Great White, Brett Carlisle, he's been in the band for a couple of years now, of course, replacing Andrew Freeman from Last in Line. And Brett's a super young guy. I think he's from Alabama. He's still in his 20s, I believe, like 27, 28, something like that.
Yeah.
How did that relationship come about? Because I know we filled in for Andrew a little bit a couple of times before he became a permanent member, but how did you guys wind up connecting with Brett in the first place?
Well, what happened was we kind of put out a little, we auditioned people, and a friend of ours, he was in a cover band. A friend of ours said, you should check out this guy, Brett. So we checked out some other people, the son of, I forget the name of this band, but the son of somebody, some band. And we checked out the singer for them, and we checked out some other singer. We sent them like just a couple big songs, like 2 or 3, and stripped the vocals off and just, had them put their vocals on there. And Brett seemed to give the best effort. I was super nervous about the whole thing, because we didn't rehearse. He just showed up and did the set. I just started about maybe 3 years ago, started wearing in-ears. I used to be totally against them. And I go, I'd rather have a bad wedge, a bad monitor than those things feel isolated in the headphones. But then I tried them, and I have ambience, plus I have a really good mix in my head. That particular night in Vegas when Brett came on, I didn't have in my headphones that good. So I didn't really know the impact he had or how good he sounded until after the show. You know, people are going, man, if you don't keep that guy, you're a fool. And you know, and then the response from the press was really positive everywhere. And Andrew was, you know, totally committed to Last in Line, which we were totally fine with. We just didn't want to be in a position to where we have to get a hodgepodge of a million different singers every time he's busy. So it worked out good because, you know, Brett killed it so bad that it was just a perfect situation, and he really delivers live.
Is it weird working with or hearing your classic songs sung on stage by a guy who wasn't even born when they were written? Is it a strange feeling?
Believe it or not, he's kind of an old soul in a way. And when we stand next to the guy, he don't look like he's standing next to Crosby, Stills, and Nash or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So somehow it fits. It even though he's younger than us, he's kind of like nothing overwhelms the guy. Like, you know, he's respectful and everything, but he's not like, oh my God, look at this. Oh my God. That, you know what I mean?
Sure.
He just goes out and just totally handles it every night. And, so yeah, you know, he's younger than us and whatnot. And like you said, he wasn't even born in our heyday or whatever, probably. But he just goes out. He really brings the crowd into the show. Like he's really good, natural at. He doesn't have a script when he goes out there. He just kind of whatever he's feeling, and he sings like perfect no matter what. It's pretty incredible, really. We're looking forward to doing an album with him. I can tell you that much.
You know, I've seen quite a few people online on YouTube comments and things like that say that Brett is probably the closest sounding singer to Jack Russell that Great White has had since Jack left. And I tend to agree. I haven't seen the band live, but from some of the footage I've seen online, did that play a role at all in the decision to bring him into the fold, or was that a criteria?
Not necessarily. What it was is he just sang the songs correctly, and he has the range to sing them. I don't think his voice sounds that much like Jack, but he has the range of Jack in his heyday.
Sure.
And so we're able to play anything we want. And we really haven't been able to do that in the past. Like we're playing like Stick It off the first album, which is, you know, up in the astro planes with the vocal range, you know.
Yeah.
And he's hitting all those notes full power. I mean, it's not like a falsetto, weak, you know, high notes. He's like straight from the gut, you know, just like screaming these notes, you know.
Yeah, like a powerhouse.
It's yeah, like full power, you know, from A to Z. I mean, there's not a song in our catalog that he can't totally handle. And I've been writing with them. We've been, you know, I got my home studio. I always have to bring a guy over. I told the story before, but because I don't really have all the gear really that I need to make a proper demo here. So I go to Tracy G's, he's like a teenage friend of mine, guitar player, really good one. And his studio, he's done 28 records there.
Oh, wow.
Something like that. And he used to be in Dio. I think he was in Dio for like 7 years. And he was in a band with Jimmy Bain and Vinny Appice called World War III. That's a pretty good record. And anyway, so I go down to his house, and we've been doing these demos and stuff, and it's pretty amazing stuff. The only thing that's held it up, we were scheduled to go in for a couple writing sessions for 2 weeks, and Scott, our bass player, had back surgery, which took him out of the loop for a couple months. So we put it on hold because we want the whole band to be there and involved and stuff.
You mentioned working on the new record. Is there plans for any new music this year, or is that more of a 2025 thing?
Yeah, this year. We want to come up with something this year without fail. You know, we don't know exactly how we're going to do it as far as, you know, releasing 12 songs or just come with 5 or just a video and a song or maybe 3 songs. That, you know, we're just kind of talking to people and see what's the best way, you know, with today's world. How, you know, do we bombard them with you know, 15 songs like old school, or do we, you know, give them a video and a song and go to iTunes and Amazon, you know, whatever. So it's, I don't know, you know, we're not there yet, so I'm not really that concerned. The main thing is just writing some killer stuff that rocks hard.
Do you have any songs completed yet, or not quite?
Oh yeah, I probably have 7 complete songs on tape right now. Just absolutely killer. But we haven't collaborated. But the way we do it is we get together and we sit in a circle and say, "What do you got? Let's hear it. What do you got?" You know. And if a riff kind of pokes out, we say, "Let's work on that. That's badass, dude. That's killer." You know, and that way it's more of a group effort. The reason I do full demos, like I even blew Tracy away. I played on a record of his, right? And he goes, "Hey, anytime you have an idea or something, come on down." And, you know, so I go down and I go, "Well, you know," he runs a click, right? And I play a full song and he's like, "Dude, you're doing like whole songs?" Like, yeah, man, I got my bass out in the car. I'm going to throw down the bass and do the drums and everything. He's like, "Fuck, bro. I thought you were just going to come with a riff. You're playing whole songs." I go, "That's the way I roll, man. You know, I write whole songs. I don't, you know." But the reason I do that, then I can present to the band and they can hear everything that was in between my ears. You know, especially if I feel confident about the idea. You know, a lot of times when I just show them a riff on an acoustic, they might not, you know, they don't get it. They're not like fully understanding that I'm hearing, you know, this badass chorus and I got this and that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I feel it's just better if I just go, "Yeah, here's my idea," and give them, you know, give them the mutt leg, you know, to boil them over, you know. I used to do that even back in the day, in the heyday. If I felt real strong about an idea, I would go into the studio, 24 tracks, and, you know, record it the best I could. Just kind of hum melodies because I can't sing up, you know, I'm not a tenor or anything, but I can hum the melodies. And that way I could show it to the band and they would, at least before they take out the elephant gun and shoot it down, they can understand my idea.
Well, I want to go back, excuse me, to the beginning, because what's so crazy to me is that when you and Jack Russell meet, it's around 1977 or so. I believe you guys end up playing a little bit together for a year or two, but then Jack gets arrested. He's like trying to rob a drug house or something and ends up shooting the maid that lived at the house. So he goes to prison, and now suddenly you're left without a singer.
Partly what you said is correct, but it was actually in the Wikipedia, they have it wrong with the time. It was really late 78. And I think after about 3 or 4 months, he got in that trouble. I'd only known him 3 or 4 months. And I think we'd only done about 3 shows. We couldn't figure out what to call ourselves. We were called Wires, and then we were called Live Wire, and then I forget a couple of. It was just such a pain in the ass to name our band. It's the worst torture that I could ever imagine for anyone. Anybody has to name their band, it's disaster. But yeah, I was painting the backs of AM PM signs. I was only like, I think I was 20, and I was on my way to work. I used to always go to this liquor store, and I see they used to have the newsstands with the newspaper, and you pay a quarter, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it said, Jack Russell live-in made, or shoots live-in made. What do you write? Or, and I'm going, what do you write? I go, that's where Jack lives. It can't be the same guy. I mean, it can't be. And I called his mom right from that store, and she's like, I go, tell me that's not Jack that, did the shooting. Yep, he went and did it this time. I'm like, are you serious? I was like so blown away, dude. I'm like, my singer shoots people. Are you serious? Really? I couldn't believe it, man. And then they kept coming with follow-up stories, like sentenced to 8 years and, and all this stuff. And so I went and got a different singer. At first, a chick singer, believe it or not. I auditioned a bunch of people. Even John Bush was even auditioned.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
He was kind of local. He was a local guy. Really, really great singer.
And that was before Armored Saint, right?
Yeah.
That was before Armored Saint, right? It was maybe like a year or two before that band got going.
Could have been, yeah. And he came down, great singer, like I said. But back then I was so everything I was coming up with was geared for like a higher range. So I wanted like Rob Halford's sister. So I wanted somebody that could sing, in that range. So even though that didn't work out, John Bush was badass. So after I had that girl singer, Lisa Baker, for like about 6 months, George Lynch decided that he'd like her to be in his band. They were called Exciter at the time. So he grabbed my singer. So I got another guy that he's kind of like a Rob Halford vibe, his name was Butch, sang like Exciter, like perfect. And,
Yeah.
But, I mean, we were playing covers and originals. So, just going through it.
And then afterwards, Jack eventually gets out like 18 months later or whatever, only served 18 months of what was initially thought to be like 8 years. And then he comes out and he begs you to audition for what ended up becoming Dante Fox then.
Yeah. Well, he didn't really beg, but his dad was saying, hey, just, he's doing great. Just give him an audition. And then Jack goes, Jack was a little more aggressive. He's like, give me, I don't care who you got, I'll blow him away.
Well, hopefully not literally.
So, yeah, hopefully not literally. But so he came in and sang really good. Believe it or not, the drummer still wanted to keep Butch. Or the singer, but the bass player at the time is named Don Costa, great bass player. Me and him go, no way. This Jack he's the package. This is what we need.
And so then once you guys end up getting that going, you're trying to get a manager, and you want Alan Niven, but he passes on the band a couple of times, I believe. And then it was actually Don Dokken who said to Alan, he says, hey man, you're really missing it. Let's go see the band tonight at the Whiskey. And so they come down and see you play. You end the set with, I think it was I Don't Need No Doctor, the Ray Charles song. And then suddenly Niven's like, okay, I get it now. I can work with this.
Yeah, a lot happened before then. We had a couple of managers, but yeah, what happened was Alan had a relationship with Dokken after he came to America. And he introduced Don to what ended up being Don's managers, Peter Minch and Cliff Bernstein.
Oh wow, yeah.
Big managers, they're like handled Def Leppard and shit.
Yeah.
So So he felt like he owed Niven a favor. So when Niven came to him, he was working for Enigma, which was a independent label that had signed Motley Crue and had just signed a Berlin, Terry Nunn, girl lead singer. And Niven wanted a rock band. So he asked Dokken, who's one of the better rock bands around? He goes, you got to go see this Dante Fox, right? So Niven went down and just wasn't blown away. And Don just told him that you're missing it, dude. These guys are badass, and you should. I'm gonna go with you, and we'll go see him. So they went, and yeah, we did that encore, and we played No Doctor, and for some reason he could see, even though it's not an original song, he could see that type of music. He could make the original stuff work just by the way he saw us deliver that song. It was a song that we didn't do every show. It was just, we happened to do it that night. So, who knows? It might have changed our fate if we don't play that,
Yeah, no kidding.
So kind of amazing. He gave us his card and, rest is history. I mean, we went down to the record company and he told us he liked what he heard. But he hated that name, man. I can tell you. Hated it so bad, dude. He just hated our name so much. So he's the one that came up with the name.
Yeah, right. Because
he said I drove by it. Yeah.
Yeah, you were driving.
I told the story before, but he said I drove by in a car while he was outside of the club, and people were in between bands, smoking cigarettes, doing what they do. And I came by and screamed. I stuck my head out the window of a car. Like, I don't know what I said, but he said I screamed something. And the kid next to him goes, "There goes Great White." Jack used to call me Great White on stage, but it wasn't my nickname. People didn't say, "Here comes Great White. He's walking down the street."
Yeah.
It was just on stage only when I would do a solo. You go, "Kendall, the Great White," because I had a white jumpsuit. I was like the whitest guy in the world, blonde hair. My guitar was white, So it was like the man from Glad or something. And but he never said that when Niven came to the show. So that's not how Niven heard it. He heard that kid point and say, "There goes Great White," and for some reason he just thought that was a cool ass name.
When he suggested when he suggested that you change the name to Great White, were you receptive to it, or were you like, I don't know, we kind of want to stick with Dante Fox?
No, we absolutely hated it. And even on the way back to Jack's house, we were driving. I just said, "Well, these are some of the compromises. We're not going to like everything, These are the big boys, there's going to be things we don't like, or we just got to deal with it. It's better than, at least we can move up a couple notches and, get bigger shows and, make a record and shit like that." But Jack and I used to shark fish in Long Beach. He had a boat and we used to go out and shark fish.
Oh, wow.
And that's when we thought of attaching the fish to the name. And when we thought of that, it was like, dude, this Great White name is badass, because we didn't have a vision. We're thinking like people could think it's racist or something,
Yeah.
I mean, this is our thinking, we were rolling this in our heads going, Great White, what the hell does that mean? And when we attach the shark to it, then we got Great White is the baddest shark in the world. And also, the name doesn't dictate what kind of music we have to play. We can just, whatever's up top of our head, write a song, and that's cool. It wasn't some kind of a really aggressive name to where you got to, write, speed metal every song or so that was cool too. But at first, yeah, we didn't like it at all.
So
seriously, we didn't like it.
When you guys go in to do that, the first EP, Out of the Night, the connection with Don Dokken actually goes a little bit into that too, because alongside Michael Wagner, he was one of the producers on that too, right?
Yeah. Niven had a lot of respect for Don. you know, he's a songwriter. He has experience. I think Don suggested Michael Wagner, so we flew him out. Don had worked with him because he did his first Breaking the Chains album with Wagner in Germany. It was just, it was a lot of fun, you know. Everything was just like a whirlwind where, you know, all of a sudden we're recording this EP. They're coming to rehearsals, and Wagner knew no English whatsoever. It was pretty amazing. But Don knew how to speak with him. Like, he knew what he was saying. So he was like the translator. Even, I don't think Don knows German, but he'd been around Wagner so much, he knows, you know, how to talk back and forth and then convey what Wagner would be saying. Because Wagner only knew like a few little phrases, like, he's funny too. I mean, he's actually, he would answer the phone and just say telephone, you know, he had no clue what these people are saying, you know, or he didn't know euphemisms or soft language. So when we'd record, if it was like a bad take or you're singing bad, he'd say, don't sing flat. You know, he didn't know how to say, hey, I think you can get one better, buddy. You know, you sounded good, but I think you can do one bit. You know, he didn't know all that talking around what the problem is, you know.
Yeah.
So he just go, it's like, don't sing bad, you know, sing good, you know. So that was really funny to work with him. And also, if we ever had like an effect we wanted, he didn't use like records that have that effect. You know, we wanted a big church AC/DC bell on this one tune called Street Killer. And he hung a tire iron in the studio on fishing line, fed the tape way up, and just went ding, 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 ding,
wow.
and then slowed it way down. It sounded like AC/DC, you know, a big badass church bell. Wow. So if he wanted a motorcycle in a song or something like that, he would have somebody drive it put microphones outside and have the guy drive by. You know what I mean? Wow. That's the way he was. He created his own sound effects. He didn't go with records and stuff.
That's incredible.
So we thought that was pretty neat. Yeah.
Well, and the song "On Your Knees" was on that first EP, and that was the first Great White song that got some airplay, right?
Yeah. Niven, I guess, you know, is a real good businessman. He had a lot of connections and got us on the radio, man. We had no idea it was going to be in rotation. When we went and listened, he had us listen one day, and we thought it was just going to play once or even just be an ad on the radio. We didn't totally know what was going to happen. He was just having us listen to to KMET, which is one of the biggest stations in LA, at a certain time of the day. And so they played On Your Knees, and we're going, God, this is amazing, because we'd never been on the radio before except for Local Licks, it was called, on this station called K-West, where they play local bands. So now, but then we come to find out they're playing it 6 times a day. It's like in heavy rotation. You know, we're in rotation with people like Tom Petty.
Yeah.
You know, wow. Queen's rolling by and stuff. You know, it's like we're going, holy crap. And we didn't even have a record deal. We only had a distribution deal. So this is like kind of unheard of to be on the radio like that. Then it got even more attention when Tipper Gore was talking about how foul the language was in the song.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
So we got people on TV reading the lyrics, and we're pumping our fists going, can you imagine this? You know, this is the greatest exposure ever. So we're thinking we're getting free promotion from Tipper Gore. You know, this
of course, yeah,
this is cool. Yeah, and so that was really neat.
But
And
the song wasn't part
from
of the
that, just moved on.
the song wasn't part of the Filthy 15 from the PMRC though, right? She brought it up, but it wasn't part of the main 15 songs or whatever that they were really going after at that time.
Well, I mean, whether it was or not, they made a big deal about how terrible we were.
Yeah.
That we were raping and pillaging people, and I mean, they were taking the lyrics like literal, and we're just the goofy dudes partying down and just talking about sex and rock and roll.
Yeah, they just didn't get it.
They made a big deal out of it. So I don't know about the list or whatever, but they put a sticker on the record.
Well, and then Out of the Night, that's what led to the band getting a deal with EMI, where you did the self-titled full length, which was once again produced by Michael Wagner. And this year, actually, 2024, marks the 40th anniversary of that record, I believe.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's funny. I made a post on Facebook the other day because something came up, and Michael Wagner has dealt with 3 generations of my family. It's like I have a photo of me 25 years old doing our first record, and then a photo of my son jamming at his studio 30 years later, just jamming and meeting Michael. And then in 2017 on the record, my 4-year-old grandson, he recorded a pick slide from him.
Oh, wow.
Gave him a metal pick.
That's incredible.
So he's done our first album. He's met my son and kind of showed him his gear in the studio and stuff, and then recorded. He goes, we got to get him on the record, right? I would just have my grandson just come so he could see everything. He goes, we got to get him on the record, right? And I go, yeah, well, maybe a pick slide, And so he'd never even done a pick slide, but he watched my grandson. He would watch videos and see people do them. So he was just emulating what he looked at.
Yeah.
And he actually did a real good pick slide for an intro of a song. So that was pretty fun.
What song on the last record was it?
Yeah.
I guess whatever one starts with a pick slide, right?
Yeah. Well, we went to lunch and I wanted an intro for the song, and he goes, well, what are you hearing? And I said, kind of like something that starts out slow, but then works its way up like a train starting out, and like gung, 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 and just throw a pick slide right through the middle of that. And we got back, and within 10 minutes, he had exactly what I was talking about out of my head. And then we had Noah come in. He was a little crying and stuff at first, but then his mom goes, you better do this now. And, and so then he quit crying and, started practicing his pick slide. It was pretty cute.
That's incredible. And how old was he at the time?
4.
Wow.
He just turned 4. Yeah.
That's crazy. So with that first record, that's where the band really starts to somewhat gain traction, because you end up getting a UK tour with Whitesnake, and then you follow that up with a US tour over here with Judas Priest, who I believe they were supporting their Defenders of the Faith record at the time, which, I mean, those are two pretty sizable tours to really get the band starting to move.
Yeah. And then we got back, and the label really didn't want to have anything to do with this anymore, because we didn't sell the amount of records that they were anticipating, because we really didn't have a big song on the radio or anything. MTV was playing us at 4 a.m, but all wasn't lost. Even though, we parted ways with them, we got essentially dropped. They just said they weren't going to do anything on our second record. So it'd be like wasting music had we done one more record with them, even, because we're contractually linked to them. So we just parted ways. But instead of getting all negative and crying, I was walking on the beach with Alan. He goes, what do you want to do? And I go, hey, man, I'm all in with the music. I mean, this is all I do. And he goes, because I want to fight. He goes, I'm not accepting this getting dropped crap. I want to make another record. So we went and made our own record, borrowed some money from somebody.
Yeah, Shot in the Dark, right? That was the record, Shot in the Dark.
Right. Yeah. And we got some airplay again, which generated Capitol Records to sign the band. So we got our second chance and made a good record, that got more attention. It's funny because I look at stories from other bands. I really like documentaries. I want to hear, how do these guys get from wherever they came from to this spot,
Yeah.
Even bands like REO Speedwagon. And REO Speedwagon didn't hit until their third album. You know what I mean?
Yeah, same with you guys, yeah.
That's like us, Then they call us an overnight success, but believe me, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and grinding and ups and downs and whatnot. So I hear other people's stories and, things didn't go so good their first record. And then, we weren't really alone in that regard, that it took a minute for us to hit.
Well, it was somewhere between the self-titled and Shot in the Dark that the movie Once Bitten, starring a very young Jim Carrey, came out, and his character in the movie, of course, is named Mark Kendall, which I guess at the time when it came out, Once Bitten wasn't, your guys' record wasn't a thing yet, so it probably didn't mean much. But then when Once Bitten came out, I mean, it's just a total mind fuck, looking back and thinking about it. Did that movie play any role?
Totally. Especially the fact, the fact that his character name was Mark Kendall. It was just
it's crazy.
Really trippy. Yeah. But we didn't have that record out yet, so it wasn't like, they got the idea from that.
Yeah.
Just a freak coincidence,
Did the movie inspire the name of Once Bitten at all, or no? There's no connection?
Oh, no, not at all. Everything we were doing was just kind of shark related. We were just, a lot of shark themes and stuff. We just thought it was a kind of a cool image because it had a little bit of edge to it, and you can go crazy with the merchandise and stuff like that.
Well, with Once Bitten, like you were saying, similar to REO Speedwagon and, hitting on your third record and all that, it really is remarkable because everybody's always like, bands have their essentially their entire lives to work on that, that first record. And then that's what leads to, things like the sophomore slump and all that. But, really for Great White, it was the third and fourth records, probably the two key records. And then, along with Hooked, which came later. But, it is remarkable. And I would imagine being in that situation where the first two records don't really quite pan out. It's got to be like, fuck, man, I don't know how much longer I can do this,
Well, what it was is Niven was really good at extracting our strengths. And he used to hear me when we weren't doing the songs, noodling. And I'd be playing like I'm Going Home by Alvin Lee, or I'd be playing some blues thing all the time. It was always blues rock type of shapes I was doing on the guitar. And he's got the wheels turning up there, and thinking you should be doing that, he called us Priest Halen on our first album.
Yeah, it's quite a bit different than the rest of your catalog. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, and we really were trying to be like Judas Priest or something. We weren't really playing straight from our influences. We were trying to be something. And sure enough, it wasn't successful. And the second album, we were still trying to find ourselves. But Niven said, just play from the heart, play from your influences, write whatever you want. Just go there. Just be honest, from your influences. Don't try to be anything. And we started doing that. It's funny. As soon as we got on it was successful. People related to it. So I guess there's something to say about that, because I didn't succeed trying to be priest.
Sure. Well, and it was during the
and we're young, it's early in the songwriting. We're very young.
Yeah, well, that first record is so different than the rest of your guys' catalog. But it was during the Once Bitten cycle that the Guns N' Roses, who at that time were also managed by Alan Niven, of course, they put out the now massive Appetite for Destruction, one of the best-selling records of all time. But, of course, at the time it was released, it took that record a while before it really, started moving. And I remember reading an interview that you did a while ago, and you said that you'd heard a demo prior to Appetite releasing, and initially you weren't overly impressed. This is, of course, before the record was released, though.
Yeah, well, Niven just played me a snippet of something, and it was just very poor quality. I just, it was hard for me to hear, listen to something that poor quality and go, oh, these guys are going to be the next greatest thing ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Niven somehow hears that. He did it with us. We were not the greatest thing ever, I'm sure, He just heard potential. So that's kind of where he really shined, is being able to hear something that maybe someone else would just shoot down and move on. In fact, he had a business partner that said, there's 1,000 garage bands that are better than this.
Wow.
And so Niven parted ways with them because he believed in it,
Yeah.
And look what happened.
Yeah, boy, did that guy fuck up, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
So, of course, you guys end up joining Guns N' Roses for the now legendary show at the Ritz in New York. But at that point, if I recall, Great White had actually sold more records at that point than Guns N' Roses did. So you guys were arguably the bigger band. But I guess at that time, according to Niven, GN'R had a crazy, crazy buzz going on out on the East Coast. So Alan talked you guys into opening the show. Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely spot on. And we had no problem with it. We go, we'll play first. Not a big deal. And we knew that, the word of mouth with that band was so extreme. I mean, at one point I heard that Geffen wanted him to go in and do another record before it even really exploded. When they were at about 250,000. And Niven said, he just begged them to put Jungle back to the radio because people are starting to talk. So it was literally word of mouth that, some guy telling his friend, you got to listen to this, and we go, holy shit. And then that guy tells somebody. I saw Niven's chalkboard, and it was so many records this week, and you could see it keep growing and growing and growing. It just, so it was really a grassroots kind of situation. And then when he talked, Geffen into putting Jungle back to the radio and taking Slash out with Les Pauls and going to big stations and having, sign these Les Pauls for people, they started to get in markets, and then this song just took off, Jungle, and but Niven was fighting tooth and nail because he believed in that record so much. He didn't want to just go away from it when he felt like it had major legs and power. So I think he had a lot to do with fighting and making that, and by doing that, it got people's full attention, and then they liked it,
But yeah, I think that's one of the greatest selling debut albums, or maybe the greatest selling debut album of all time, or whatever. But that show at the Ritz, I was reading that Alan also had both of the two bands separated at the show, though, right?
Not necessarily. Um, I didn't really. I mean, I was right before we went on. I was standing there talking to Steven Adler. He goes, "Isn't this great, man? Can you believe it? This is New York, bro." He's like a kid. He's like a teenager. All excited, and you know. So, no, we weren't really separated. Izzy, I used to give him a ride. We used to rehearse near or at a place they were rehearsing at. I gave him a ride home one day. So there was no animosity. No one cared that he managed two bands. We didn't really play with them much. Just that one show, and one time I jammed on stage at a charity event with Slash, just kind of trading licks and like a Red House type deal, you know. But I always loved them. It's such a good rock band, that just awesome.
Well, and the GN'R connection, of course, sort of extends further than that, because it was Izzy Stradlin who suggested to Niven that you guys cover Ian Hunter's "Once Bitten, Twice Shy" for the Twice Shy record, which is interesting though, because prior to that, you guys had already Great White had sort of already had a little bit of a relationship with Ian Hunter prior to recording his song, right?
Yeah. That's a story I've heard over the years. Niven, I've heard in the past years, he said something different, like he had the idea before that or something. So I don't really know exactly, but that's the story I heard, that Izzy came with that song. And but yeah, just by coincidence, nothing to do with doing the song. When we were on tour with Judas Priest, our sound man was friends with Ian Hunter. And Ian Hunter lived in New York, and he said he had a drum riser in his backyard, and we could probably borrow it and use it on the Priest tour. So we went to his house and borrowed that drum riser. So I didn't even see Ian Hunter then, but then there was another time when Ian Hunter came on our bus to a gig, and that was kind of a just freak coincidence because of Craig and the sound man. So he was buddies with him, and he's probably worked with him before, maybe in a live situation, maybe did monitors or something. I don't even know. But when that song came about, we already had a full record. I mean, we were, it was just the fact that we had an album called Once Bitten and the follow-up Twice Shy.
Yeah.
And then Alan loved the lyrics in this Ian Hunter tune. So we're thinking, we thought it was a cool tune. We can do it, put our spin on it. And we had no idea it was going to be a single. That was the record company. When they heard the album, they insisted on it. So, and then it just, what happened with it just went crazy. But I think people related to the lyrics, Once Bitten, Twice Shy. I mean,
yeah,
that can cover a lot.
Of course.
So, and it was a road song, and we were a road band. I mean, we're always on tour. We came home just to make another record and wash our clothes. I mean, we were right back out. We were out for 11 months with Tesla, and instead of going home after that, we took a break and went to the Bahamas for 5 days. And then, you know what I mean? So that's how crazy it was, the touring.
Is it
nonstop?
Is it frustrating at the time that the label is pushing so hard for Once Bitten, Twice Shy to be the lead single, a cover song instead of an original? Is it kind of like, man, we'd like to, push one of our own songs first?
Yeah. Our thinking, and we even talked about it within the band, is at least we have songs to fall back on after. So, because we felt strong about some of the originals, and we go, so it's, if this song don't do good, we got plenty to come with, to save it, So, we had no idea. You never know. I mean, Rock Me was a little bit of a different story. Like when I heard that back all mixed and the record company was jumping around in the control room, that's a song that I felt like, listening to it like, just somebody that was hearing a song for the first time or something, kind of standing away from it and then seeing the reaction. I felt like that song had a real good chance to do well.
Yeah.
If anybody thinks the way I do, hoping. But once bitten, twice shy, I thought it was recorded really good and it had a good hook. I go, this is, it sounds fine. I mean, I didn't say, oh my God, really? We're putting that song out. It didn't really bother me that much. But I had no idea it was going to do what it did.
Well, yeah, I think I heard you say in another interview that after when Ian Hunter would, after you guys did that song, when he'd go out and he'd play that song, people would be like, why are you playing a Great White song? Not even realizing that it was his song.
No, that really happened. I heard somebody, they said that to him, and because the song was never hit in the U.S., nobody knew the song.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say, like, this happened not by design as far as the reason we did the song, except for we had an album called Once Bitten and Twice Shy. It wasn't like we were out of material and we need a song, so we're going to do a cover. Because if that was the case, we'd find a hit to do. We're not going to do a song nobody knows, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Well, we'd get a massive hit and make it our own in some fashion. Maybe deliver it different, like, the way Lenny Kravitz did American Woman, or something.
Yeah.
Like take a hit song and make it your own, give it a different beat or something, you know what I mean? But this was not that case. This was just generic the way that happened. We weren't desperate for any songs or anything.
Well, and
it was just thrown on there and, go.
GN'R was never going to record that or anything before you guys, but weren't they going to originally do that song "Wasted Rock Ranger," which is sort of the country kind of song? I think it was like a friend of theirs had written it, but then they decided not to do it, so you guys did it.
Yeah, we thought it was the funniest song that I've ever heard.
It's a cool song, yeah.
Have cocaine with the cornflakes, and it was so funny. And we used to do it at the very end of our shows. We would come out and Audie would get, to the front of the stage and just play a conga drum or tambourine or something, and it became kind of a cult hit, if you will. People thought the lyrics were really funny, and, it wasn't to be taken seriously. It was just, kind of making fun of the whole party thing,
Do you guys still do that live now or no?
We haven't done it for a while. We haven't done it for a while, but it'd be fun to do it.
Yeah. So Twice Shy ends up going double platinum just a few months after it's released, basically closing out the 80s at this point. Then enter now the 90s. Hooked comes out in 91. Of course, it's it does well as well, but that's also the same year that Nirvana's Nevermind comes out, and grunge really began to take over. But what's interesting is I was reading in an interview with you, you've said that you weren't really necessarily as bummed out about the whole grunge thing as you thought at the time that you should have been, because you felt that by the end of the 80s, things were really starting to get watered down anyways. So it was almost even though it was competition, it was almost like a nice change of pace because everything was starting to be too samey.
When I saw their video and these guys running around with Pendletons like they didn't care, and and the guitar sounds real jangly, and the guys hanging the guitar almost to the ground. I mean, and they're just jumping around like they don't have a care in the world. I thought it was just awesome. I loved that, the trashiness of it, and the singer had a real good sense of melody. It wasn't just like horridness or anything. It was like there was songwriting there, I just thought it was kind of refreshing, really. Yeah, it did kind of injure us a little bit, but it didn't stop us or make us change how we do things. We just kind of took our lumps and went through the '90s, playing mid-sized venues, and the fans were still there, and there were some good bands in the '90s. I always liked that Alice in Chains. I thought they were amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially the way they did their harmonies, man. They were never like, there were weird minor things going on with their harmonies, and it was like pretty intelligent songwriting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the nice guitar sound, and that singer was badass. Like Man in a Box, and it was just gangster, man.
Yeah, Lane Staley was incredible. But yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, because do you feel that maybe, obviously, like you said, it did hurt Great White a little bit when everything kind of shifted, but was it almost maybe not quite as hard, because you guys were always more, like you said earlier, a little bit more blues based once you guys really start taking off, traditional hard rock almost, and not the typical run of the mill, quote unquote glam band as was, kind of commonplace by the late '80s, early '90s, where essentially everybody was copying everyone else. Great White, along with, another like Tesla or Cinderella, something like that, you kind of had your own lane, and you weren't, you had your own sound. It wasn't like you sounded like a million other bands. So maybe, because you guys were putting records out all throughout the '90s. So, maybe it wasn't as hard on you guys, because you guys did kind of have your own little thing going.
The reason they, like a journalist that really hasn't researched the music, it just kind of, it's because of what we wore and our hair and everything. We looked like everybody.
Sure.
Because the same guy, Ray Brown, was making clothes for everyone. He was making clothes for the Scorpions, Whitesnake, Motley Crue, Great White, Rat. So we were wearing Ray Brown clothes, and we all had long hair, and everybody had Aquanet on the rider. And, I never used hairspray, but my hair was just like pretty intense. And so the hairband brand, we were labeled with it. But when you speak about the music, it did have a blues overtone, and, not so ultra predictable or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was some pretty good songwriting and stuff like that.
So, of course, by the time the early 2000s come out, you decide, you've kind of had enough. You want to take a break from the band. Some of the other members then followed suit, and you start to do your own thing. Is it sort of a strange feeling that, just a decade prior, you're essentially on top of the world, and then now you're not in Great White anymore, and almost kind of starting all over again? The landscape is totally changed and all that?
Yeah. It was funny because I was willing to totally start over, and I got the keyboard player for Eric Clapton, a really good singer, the drummer from Arkansas, and this bass player that was unknown, but he played like unreal. And went and made a record. But my first intention was to do a solo album. And I started writing with this guy, Todd Griffin, and he was singing while we were writing. And when I heard his voice, I go, God, I can't sing if you sing that good. So instead of making it a solo album, I made it a band, and we called it Train Station. And got Dickie Sims, man. The sound he had on his keyboards, I mean, you can hear it in Eric Clapton, man, Shot the Sheriff and Cocaine. That's all Dickie, and so it's really neat having a keyboard player that had that Hammond B3 Leslie, these big old Leslie cabinets, and made a really good record. I was trying to get a record deal, didn't happen. And so then I made a solo album and sang. I met this guy at this award show, Bob, God, his last name escapes me, but he had Grammys from his work with the Temptations and all this stuff, right? I met his wife actually, and he actually jammed with Hendrix and
Oh wow.
just in some jam in New York, and he'd played with John Lennon before, and we were just talking. And she goes, I'd love to get together with you for whatever reason. I have no idea, just from speaking with me, and we should write. We should do writer. And so I went to their house, and they had a studio in North Hollywood, up in the hills, badass studio, right? So then I got the idea, why don't I make a solo album? And this song we wrote called I'm the Man, I go, I'll put this on the record. Maybe you can play piano on it. And so I sang on this record. Man, what a pain in the ass that was. I'm not a lead singer, man. Yeah. I'm telling you that I got so much respect for people who sing after that. It's so difficult. I mean, I sang in my range. I'm more like, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Hendrix range,
Sure. Yeah.
I'm not going to go out there and start screaming Zeppelin or something. Yeah, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
And so that was a lot of fun. Record turned out pretty good.
Would you do another solo record at this point?
I haven't, but I've done some songs and stuff. People are kind of bugging me to do one. But the reason I did it, I wanted to know, if you remove me from Great White, what would it sound like? If I jam with other people. It was really more curiosity than feeling like I want to get out there and show people how great I am, or it was more like I just wanted to experience that, because I've been in the band so long. I just want, and you really can hear my end of Great White, when you remove me from the band and I play with other people, you go, oh, I hear that element. That's what's in Great White. You can kind of understand what I contribute.
Sure. So, at some point, eventually, Jack Russell goes on to do his own thing, but then his manager calls you to ask you if you'll join up with him to go out on the road for a while, because Jack was at that time kind of struggling to sell tickets. So you guys go out so that you can do some Great White songs or whatever. Of course, that ends up, leading to tragedy, which we don't need to rehash that here. But eventually, after all that stuff, it does lead to Great White reforming and a couple of new albums, which were, I guess, the last two to feature him. So it really was a full-fledged reunion, which I would imagine had to feel, nice after kind of going out doing your own things for a while, and then, coming back. It had to be good to get back at it with, Jack and everybody else.
Yeah, because we hadn't seen anybody for 6 years, and we just called each other and said, hey, what do you think? And get back together and make a record. And everybody was up for it, and we had kind of a party, and everybody, it was just good to see everybody, and everybody seemed inspired. And so we made another run at it, and then I think it late '98 or so, we had Jack Blades involved and produced a record for us. So we went up to his ranch and recorded in Santa Rosa, and that was a great experience. That guy, man, I'm telling you, the energy that guy has is like, and he's a songwriting machine. His ideas, he's so electric with his brain. I could play 3 chords on my guitar, and he'd start freaking out and go, dude, yeah, and start, I mean, he's like, that's the kind of energy this guy has. It's bizarre. He's such a songwriter. He's done stuff for Motley Crue, Aerosmith. I mean, he just, you see all the platinum records on his wall. What are you doing with Aerosmith? You know, what are you doing with that album on the wall? You know, well, I wrote this, you know, co-wrote this song and this, you know. So that was just boatloads of fun. That was a pretty good record, but again, timing. You know, I think if Can't Get There From Here came out like in 1990 or something, it would have got attention because that was decent. It was a decent record.
Well, I wanted to ask by 2010, Jack was having some health issues, and you had a few different people begin to fill in, including, of course, the late Jani Lane from Warrant. And I believe this was one of the last things he did, I would imagine, before he tragically passed away. I think he started filling in a year or so prior to, I think he passed in 2011, right? Something like that.
Yeah. And doing great because I'm a sober advocate. I work with, you know, addicts and alcoholics and stuff.
Yeah.
Practically daily. And me and him were very, he was sober. He was professional, always on time. Wasn't drinking or anything, had his wife out with him and just sang better than he had in years. And we were in touch daily. I used to send him meditation and prayer every day. He'd call me and say, dude, that hit home, and all this stuff. And we tried to identify his triggers, you know, what makes him, you know, slip or go off. And one of the things he said was not being busy, you know, downtime. That's when the demons start hitting him. And that ended up unfortunately happening. You know, a slip turned out to be fatal. It was just awful. But wonderful guy, just incredible talent. You know, I think people realizing, you know, he played drums on his album. I mean, you know, the guy wrote everything. I mean, he's just a very gifted dude.
Well, a couple more things I want to ask you before we wrap this up. Eventually, when you and Jack end up going your separate ways, there's Great White, and then, of course, now there's Jack Russell's Great White, as it's been like that for, I don't know, I guess a decade or more by this point. But does that ever lead to any confusion with fans or promoters that maybe aren't hip to the situation?
It really hasn't. You know, because in our agreement, we want his name to be prominent, and that way people know what they're going to look at, you know, that him and his hired band or whatever. So it's always kind of been fine. You know, we wanted him to make a living too, you know. But
well, I know it's the,
you know, like
I know the Zoom. There's the crazy lag where everybody's always talking over each other. Sorry about that. But I know it's $1 million question. It's been asked a million times, but at this point, everybody's getting older, not going to be out there on stage forever. Do you think that there is a possibility the Great White reunites with Jack for even just one final farewell show? Similar to what Kix did last year. You know, I had Jack on a few weeks ago, and I told him the same thing. I feel like if Axl Rose and Slash can reunite, anyone can. And, of course, I know you've said before that you and Jack, you never really fought, so it wasn't – it's not like a nasty thing like it was with Axl Rose and Slash. No. It's really just over, personal issues and things like that. So do you think that there's a chance for
not even personal? I've never taken his addiction personal. He's, you know, it's just, you know, if you're doing poorly with addiction, it's hard to keep enabling that.
Sure.
It just got to where, you know, that it never, you know, normally bands break up or, you know, move on because they just don't get along. They just hate each other. That's not the case with us. As far as us getting back together, you know, who knows what can happen? I mean, you know, but it's not in the plans at the moment or anything.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I think I can speak for everybody when, you know, it'd be great to see even just one final show with Jack, especially for guys like me. I mean, I'm in my 20s, so I never got to see you guys together.
Wow, that's cool, man.
But one final note, which you kind of alluded to earlier, but you've been sober for now, what, 15 years or something like that. It's been a while, which congratulations on that.
Yeah.
But you also help people who are actively struggling with addiction. And I think you said it all really kind of started because you're working with a lot of different people, and it really just started from a Facebook post that you put out however many years ago.
Yeah. I just thought, you know, because I'm a pretty bad alcoholic, you know, and I did it. So I figure, you know, that other people can do it too that are in trouble. You know, maybe suffering, maybe they're losing a lot, you know. And so I just offered my sober friendship, encouragement, because I kind of was very ignorant to what it takes to get sober. I never, you know, knew anything about programs or, you know, I heard people go to rehab. I'm thinking like some kind of hospital situation. I didn't really know until I went to one, and it still took me a long time to get it, because I think that I didn't believe in this alcoholism, you know, like it's a disease. I think that guy can drink normal. Why can't I? So I kept going back and trying it again and trying to be like that guy. And I just couldn't do it. I'm competitive too, you know, I'm very competitive. So if some guy can drink 4 beers and watch a game, I can do that too, you know.
Sure.
But I couldn't do it. I would do it okay for a couple of days, but then I was right back with the abuse again. So eventually I said, I can't do this. But as far as reaching out on Facebook, a guy gets a hold of me, he starts doing great. And then pretty soon it just, you know, kind of snowballed to where I was speaking to a lot of people one-on-one, basically just sharing how I did it, you know, and maybe they're fans of the band, or, you know, maybe that's part of the reason at first they get a hold of me. But once we start talking about addiction and stuff like that, I've seen a lot of people do well, you know. So it's kind of neat, you know, to watch these sick people do better. Because a lot of people, the abusive ones, they lose a lot. They lose families, jobs, you know, and, you know, you get to a point where, you know, so people have different bottoms. I'm not saying that would make them quit, but, you know, some people can get a DUI and never drink again, you know what I mean? But then there's guys that just, no matter what they lose, they just can't stop. So, but I just thought maybe I can make a difference, you know, contribute a little bit, you know. It changed my life completely. So I just would like to see others, you know, do good too, you know, and maybe they can get some things back that they lost and start doing good.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible thing for you to be doing. And again, congrats on the sobriety, man. That's incredible. So,
thank you, sir.
What else is going on in the world of Great White? I know we mentioned it's the 40th anniversary of the self-titled. Any plans for that or anything to do anything live, or not really?
Yeah, well, you know, we have been going back and doing older music. You know, like going back to the first album, we're doing Stick It. We're kind of just grabbing this song and that song. I just saw that Hooked. You know, it's one of those deals on this date, you know, this album was, somebody put that on my Twitter or somewhere. And so that's pretty cool. You know, when it actually makes me think about the songs on those records, you know, because sometimes there's certain songs that you don't play live. It's almost like it's wasted music in a way. It's not with the fans because they discover your deep cuts, but there might be songs that we never play live. It's kind of unfortunate. I can see why people would go out and just play their whole record, like have a special show and just do, like, you know, go out and just play everything off Once Bitten, or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those thoughts have been rolled around a little bit. It'd be fun, just for one special show to do, you know, just one record, you know. But yeah, it's fun to look back, and I was thinking about what was on Hooked, you know, and I remember we did do a cover song that I don't know if a lot of people knew about it, called Afterglow. That was pretty badass. You know, that Steve Marriott, man, he was so gangster. Such a good singer, Humble Pie. So yeah.
Well, I guess you can get all of your upcoming dates at officialgreatwhite.com. Mark, thanks so much for coming on, man. I appreciate it. And I got to say, man, it's an honor to have you. I remember being a kid. Like I said, I'm still in my 20s, so I wasn't around back in the day. But
that's amazing. You're in your 20s. Awesome, man.
Yeah, no, I first discovered Great White on the Music Choice channels, and I remember seeing they put a picture of you guys up, and you had that big black hat on. And I'm like, man, man, that guy looks so fucking cool, man. And to have you, there it is. Yes. Yeah. Oh man, that is incredible.
My mother used to save everything. You know, I would never have something like that, but my mom, I used to give her T-shirts, and I give her, you know, of course, platinum records, but stuff she would put in her box. And even like the smallest little ad for a show before we were even Great White, like she saved everything. So when she passed away, I got her box, and I have 4 tour jackets. I mean, like every single T-shirt from every tour. You know, I would have never saved all that stuff. I'm not good with that, you know. So it's kind of neat. She had a couple hats, you know. that I gave her.
Well, that was incredible. Thanks for bringing that on camera. That was great. Do you still have that? Do you still have that the Shark guitar?
Yeah, it's not in here though. My original Shark I gave to Dick Clark years ago.
Oh wow!
He called our offices and wanted my original Shark for the Hard Rock. I think he was part owner or owned the one in Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
And then it moved around. It was they want everybody to look at the different merchandise, so the memorabilia. So they move it. And I know it had been in Hawaii, and somebody told me it was in Rio at Hard Rock, and then it was at one other one besides Hollywood. I can't remember, but then I had another one made about 15 years ago, and it's in storage. It actually plays pretty good. That one that I gave away just sounded horrific. It was more like a novelty, something for the fans to look at. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was funny when my first endorsement with BC Rich, they made me a Shark guitar, but it looked like Flipper. I mean, this thing looked like a dolphin. I go, dude, you got the wrong fish. You got the wrong fish here, bro.
Oh my God. Well, Mark, thank you so much for coming on and taking some time, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Hope to see you soon.